Hi everybody, Logan here with another video. Well, I was going to do something a little different today, and that was it's going to run through just some processing steps that I did on some data that's actually not mine. It actually belongs to James, that I'm sure everybody knows is DSO Imager, and will already be well familiar with his channel, I'm sure. But if for some bizarre reason you're not familiar with his channel, I'll put a link in the description below. Go and check it out. Does fantastic run-throughs on processing his data and has lots of tips and things. So definitely a great resource, I think, particularly if you're learning PixInsight and you're learning how to process your images. Mine may not be anywhere near as well organized as his is this presentation, I'm afraid, but I'll do my best. Now he actually contacted me on Messenger, and I think it was after one of my many videos complaining about the weather here.
Well, I'd say the weather's still really crap here. Lots and lots of rain. It's just rained for weeks. Hardly seen the stars at all. So there's been no real opportunity to do some new imaging.
Because the weather has been so shocking, and had offered the opportunity, if I wanted to process some of his data, keep my hand in, since, you know, there was not much astrophotography going on down here. And then we came up with the idea that perhaps we should just do a data swap. And so we said, hey, go and look at each other's astro bins and pick a whatever image you like, and we'll share the raw stacks and go from there. So I chose the Tadpole Nebula of James's, and he chose the Carina Nebula of mine. Now, I felt like it was a little bit of a one-sided data swap in the fact that the Tadpole Nebula data that James shared with me was 34 hours of integration time, just over, I think, and my Carina was only 9.5 hours, so I think I definitely got the better end of the deal here. But anyway, let's go through and have a look at the data that I got. So here is the HA, and you can see, you know, there's like a ton of detail. It's very, very clean. You can see all the tadpoles, the dark nebulosity, etc. I mean, it's really nice data here. And to be honest with you, I did feel like I was cheating a little bit processing this, because the data was so good. It was almost like you just could do an SHO combination, correct the purple stars, and you're done. It was, you know, to that point. But anyway, I went ahead and processed further. Now here's the S2, so I've zoomed in a bit. Again, well, while we're looking at the S2, you can see there's still some really nice data of the, or detail, should I say, in the S2. You're not really picking up quite this dark nebula that is in the HA, but you know, that's again really nice detail. And here is the O3, which is a little more pale on the tadpoles as far as signal is concerned, but is picking up a lot of this nice lightness in the middle here, and again showing this dark nebulosity. So I went ahead and did an SHO combination for the typical Hubble palette, and this is what I came up with. Now, this is what I was saying, you know, if you look at this, you could almost, you could do hardly any tweaking here, actually, just correct the purple stars and you could put it out as a good image. But so, as I said, felt like I was cheating a little bit because I didn't really have to work too hard on this. The data was so good. So, but I went ahead and processed it further, and we'll just run through the steps. So first thing was to, you can do the inversion, and you can see that all these purple stars have now turned green. And then you do, you take your SCNR tool set to green here, and you remove the green, and you can see the green's gone here, and then you re-invert it back, and now the stars have converted back to sort of more white stars. There's also some slightly more yellow golden stars, which is quite nice. And so that correct the stars, as I said, you could bang that image out just as it is. It would still be looking damn good. So I then went ahead and did star exterminator to remove the stars, and then it was a matter of working on the various areas of the nebula to try and bring out some other areas, different colors, for example, and maybe accentuate some of the areas a bit more. So a lot of that was done through curves, as you'll see James does on his channel as well. This is just brightening things up a bit, increasing a bit of some of the contrast, and a bit more of a step there. And I think, yeah, a little bit more going on there. Okay, and if we go forward another step, we can see the identifier has turned brown, and that shows that we have a mask on here. And if I do show mask, this is what's on here. So most of this image is being protected. It's just a sort of slightly darker area here that I'm working on the colors. And that correspond, actually, if I turn off the mask so we don't see it, corresponded to these green areas because I was using a green color mask here. Now, I think everybody's more familiar with the under utilities, scripts utilities, and the usual color mask tool. And this was great, but it was somewhat restricted in the colors that you could use for your masks, and those sort of subtle differences in the colors. Like if you look over here, you know, you've got some areas where we're getting into a sort of a more orangey yellow there. You've got the yellow there. You've got a gentle movement into the greens, and then into the cyan and the darker blue. And if you wanted to sort of home in on some of these little areas, it was kind of hard to do it with this because you had to choose either yellow or you had to choose green, and there was a lot of overlap in areas that you didn't want touched, but it would grab that into the color mask. So what they've done is created a new version, which is a color mask mod, and you can check out James's video. I'll put a link in the description below. I think he refers to where you can get it from, or he refers to Adam Block's video, who shows you where you can get it from. But this is what the color mask tool looks like, and now you can see we've got a color wheel, and it's got all these gradations from one color to the next, which means that now you're able to sort of really home in on various shades of color rather than having these big restricted small number of colors. Now you can just use it sort of very simply by clicking red, and it will sort of go to the red areas, the yellow areas, green, etc., etc. But if you wanted to sort of, say for example, you wanted to look at more these orange areas that are, they're not the nice deep red, but they're not the yellow, what you can do is you can actually just, I'll just click yellow first of all, and then you can just move this back a little bit here in this slider, and you can move this one back here. And now you can see that we're selecting more of the orangey areas here that might be present in the image, and you can create a mask that way. So you're not including all this red that might be in there, and you're not including all the yellow that might be in there. I may have made that one a little bit, so I'll just bring it down to about like that perhaps. But you can see that it's more of an orange look here, and then from there you can, you know, say OK and get it to create your mask. If you wanted to have a look at certain areas of your image to get an idea of what colors you should be choosing when you wanted to affect them. So if I draw a box just with my mouse here, now you'll see that this area suddenly zooms in and fills the field of view. And what you can do is you get a bit of a closer view, and you can go, okay, so I want to work on this area which has the darker blue. So whereabout is this on the color wheel? You click on that and it's down there. So then you know that you can adjust your your sliders so that if you really want to get on a narrow area of color, you just bring it in like that. If I wanted to work on, say, these areas of the tadpoles and change the color of that, which at the moment is sort of a yellowy greeny, again, same thing, just move your sliders around until you home in on that sort of area, and you can make that as narrow or as wide as you like, and then you can create a mask that means that you will be working pretty much on just that sort of color that's in your image. Once you've decided what you want, you can hit reset zoom just to go back and have a look again, or if you wanted to move to another area, make another box, etc. So and then you can go OK, and you can create the mask. This has got a layer blur of 5, so it's more blurry than if you had it down to 1, for example. There's a few other things in these sliders you can change. I don't know a lot about them. I've been using it more in the basic form, but it certainly works a lot better than the old color mask. tool. So I had this green color mask and I just worked a little bit, so I don't know if hopefully you can see through here that it actually took a little bit of the green out of here. Now I just have to have a look in here and see if the mask is the same mask. So this is a slightly different mask now that's been applied, and if I invert it you'll see the areas that are being highlighted because they now look red. So let's say show mask, and the mask I used for that one was this one here. And the reason why that one has CMG green is because if I just go back to the color mask tool here. To make this one, I just clicked the green, and when it made it, it put a G on the end. But for this tool here, you can see it's CM30 to 79. So basically, my start hue here was 30. And this one here was 79. And that was the area I was working on here. So I was sort of going for slightly more, maybe orangey areas. And so what happens when you create that mask, it'll show you the range of where you were on this degree color wheel. So I'll just remove that again. So we'll just move that down. Same with this one. This was between 360 degrees and 58 degrees, that mask. So we'll just step forward and you can see that has just sort of brought in a few more red warm tones, and a bit more again. And stepping forward, just very subtle changes as we go through. Then I wanted to keep a bit of green, because it is nice in the image, and also I think everybody who follows James's channel knows that he likes a bit of green, so it seemed rude to take out the green, because the green really does add to the image, I think. And I think I just took a little bit out there with ICSCNR, and there was a little bit of upsharp mask. So if we just zoom in here, I used a preview box here, and I'll just zoom in here and we just step forward a little bit, and you can see it just sharpened things up a little bit and showed extra little details like these little bits sticking out the side, etc. And then I think that was to that point. And I did do a little bit of denoise. Now I did actually take this into Photoshop as well. Let me just move up to here, and there are some things I find easier to use in Photoshop than PixInsight. Sometimes making some of the masks are a bit easier. And I just sort of increased a bit more of the reds here. It did start to bring out a bit more of the green. And what do we do here on this one? And so I just pulled back a little bit on the green, just very subtly. You can see there's just a subtle change there, but there's still a hint of green in there. And then I've come to this area again, and I just checked on noise exterminator. So there's a little bit of noise there. Didn't want to add too much, just a small amount, just subtly to take away that granular look to it. But it still has the really nice detail. And then this next step, a bit more curves, just to sort of again bring out some of the brighter areas and the darker areas, and that's sort of largely where it got to. Now, one thing I just talk about, I did a couple of versions. The first version I went through and I was going to use the hydrogen alpha as a luminance layer, because hydrogen alpha often has the bulk of the, we're used to seeing most of the detail in the hydrogen alpha. So I thought I'd do the color part, and then I can sort of blur it a little bit to deal with the color noise, and then I'll throw the luminance layer on top, and it'll bring out all this nice lovely detail. Now I just wanted you to keep an eye on this. There's a little sticker over here just sticking out. This is not a star, this is part of the nebula, and I'll show you what happened. So I wasn't really quite paying attention to the detail quite as much here, and just keep an eye on that. So I went forward, what's the first thing? I did a bit of blur exterminator, and it actually really accentuated it, which was great. And then I went ahead and did star exterminator, and if we just zoom in here, have a look at this here. Star exterminator thought that was a star, and it removed it. And I didn't notice that. And so I wasn't really sure about what other little subtle detail that perhaps it had also taken out when it did that. So you do have to be a little bit careful with some of these programs. I'm just processing an image at the moment where I did Star Exterminator and actually was taking out some of the nebulosity as well. So just keep an eye on your image when you're using these tools, because it can actually take little bits away. So of course I went forward and processed it. I think that's a stretch, and etc, etc. I won't go through all those steps, but I'll show you what happened. If we have a look here, so this was a version I did where I worked on all the color part, and then I just gave it a little bit of a blur to deal with the color noise. And then I put the luminance on top, and again, have a look at this. As the luminance gets added, boom, it disappears. Now, sure, it brings out all this extra detail in here, but I was losing little bits. So I went back and went and redid it again without using the HA as the luminance. And as you can see here, there's actually, let's move this one. So this one here, where the color's a bit better. There's still all the detail there, but I've still got these little bits showing up. So yeah, just be aware of that, that you can, have some detail removed by Star Exterminator because it thinks it's a star. The next thing was to work on the stars. So I think this is what the stars looked like when I had them taken off at Star Exterminator. Basically all I did was just increase the saturation there a bit, and then just pull back to make them a little bit dimmer, and then recombine them back for my final image, which was this one of the tadpoles. So yeah, it was fun to be able to process this data. Thanks very much, Jane, for sharing it with me, and thank you for generously sharing your 34-hour data image, where mine was only 9.5 hours, but I love the detail in this, and it's one of these targets that I'm not going to be able to image unless I head to the northern hemisphere. I have kept a little hint of green in there, just because I think that does really add to the image, and I know certainly James's images have green in them. Now, some may consider this to be a little bit too bright in colour. I do like this sort of warm in the colours in here, but as with all astro images, it's a matter of taste as to whether you like them very saturated or not very saturated, or something in between. So we've actually had a few clear nights, or at least partially clear nights, so I have been able to get back into doing some imaging. So I do have a target I'm doing at the moment of it's a bubble around, I think it's a Wolf-Rayet star again. It's off the beaten track. I don't know if there are any images of this area of nebulosity around the star, or if there is, they're very hard to find. And I should have that hopefully available soon to show you. But in the meantime, I will leave you with James's beautiful data of the Tadpole Nebula.